Hello and welcome to Voices of Westerly, a new podcast from the United Theater featuring conversations, many of which are recorded in front of a live audience, with the creative and professional individuals who make Westerly, Rhode Island such a unique and inspired community of leaders, innovators, and artists. I'm your host, Tony Nunes, Artistic Director of the United Theater, here in the beautiful downtown arts district of Westerly, Rhode Island. The Voices of Westerly series is inspired by Westerly photographer and artist Josh Behan, who created a Faces of Westerly portrait series, which we premiered here a couple of years ago at the United and is now on permanent display and rotation in our halls. Voices of Westerly live discussions will take place monthly in our post-credit scene event space here at the United. Our first guest of the evening is the director of the United Music School located here at the United Theater. Please welcome Tom Foley.
Thank you. I'm Tom Foley. I'm the director of the United Music School. Am I supposed to introduce myself?
You're not.
Or are you
You're supposed to let me ask the questions and lead this conversation.
This is not going to work. We got to see other people.
This is our first time we're going to use this cane to pull off a guest from the stage. All right. Tom.
Tony.
Welcome to Voices of Westerly. You can respond.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
All right. So I start all of these interviews off the same way by asking, what is your Westerly origin story? Were you born in Westerly? Did you end up here? How did you land in this fine town?
So this is a long story. You got a minute?
I do.
All right. Well, the short version of this is I was born in Westerly Hospital. I went to, all the Westerly schools, graduated Westerly High School, and born and raised, and I'm raising my family in Westerly. So the long story is my great-grandfather, my dad's grandfather, was chief of police in Worcester, Massachusetts for a long time, and in the 1920s found himself with some extra disposable income and bought a vacation house on Atlantic Ave in Misquamicut. And it was a gorgeous house, stone, stacked stone foundation, and looked like Weekapaug houses. And he moved in next door to a guy named George Carroll, who was a mill owner from Woonsocket. So a very Rhode Island story, the Irish police chief and the Irish mill owner, right? So, so they lived next door to each other during the summers, and they, brought their families down there. Of course, they both lost their houses in the 1938 hurricane. They rebuilt the houses in the 1940s. And then my father had three sisters, and they all made friends with the families next door. So, all the cousins and huge Irish Catholic family. And my dad went to Dartmouth College and then into the Navy. And when he came back from the Navy, the girl next door, who had been his little sister's best friend at the beach house, was suddenly a 18-year-old beauty. And that was my mom. So that's how my parents met. And, it's kind of an amazing story. And my family, the Foley family, still owns that house. And it's the hub of my family. We celebrate, birthdays and weddings. I had my rehearsal dinner there. It's an amazing place. So, yeah, that's my story.
It's a good one. That's a very good origin story. Tom is also, and we're going to talk about this later. I'm going to ask you a few questions about this later, but you're also a historian. And you're a historian.
Yes.
And you are now leading some Westerly historical pages and activities here, and trying to keep that history alive. So I expect lots of history in all of your answers moving forward.
Yeah, I'm the I am the admin on a Facebook page called All About Westerly that Joe Pendola started many years ago, and I'm proud to be the custodian of that collection. Lots of images, maps, stories, and things of that nature. I'm also a proud member of the Westerly Historical Society and the Babcock Smith House Association. I've given tours at the at Fort Griswold in Groton. I have led tours elsewhere, but yeah, I'm a history nerd.
Well, let's dive into your history as a musician first and foremost. I've known you a very long time. We went to school together, so I know a little of this, but I don't know how you started and where your kind of musical journey began. When did you start learning how to play guitar and these other instruments you play, and how has that evolved, into, we'll talk about you as a teacher later, but you as a musician, where did that start?
I love that I get to talk about this, by the way. I never get to talk about this stuff. So, actually, I shouldn't say that. I don't hold my students captive and say, hey, I'm going to tell you this story, whether you want to or not. But, my mom sang a lot when I was a kid, so there's always music going in the house. They were both products of, the bubblegum pop 60s era, and she loved the Monkees and the Beatles and Frankie Valli and like that kind of stuff. And my dad had no idea who anybody was. Like he knew the names of maybe a couple of songs and could hum along, but he had no idea who any of the musicians were or any of the bands. So I sang a lot when I was a kid, and then one day I watched a movie. I'm also a big movie fan. There's a movie called Back to the Future, and there's a scene where Michael J. Fox gets up on stage and plays Johnny Be Good. And I turned to my mom, I remember this, I turned to her and I went, I want to do that. And I think the next day we went down the street over here to Rossi Music. Thank you very much. And at the time, Mr. Rossi was still running the shop, and we walked in there, and I got signed up for guitar lessons. So now I play guitar, bass, ukulele, and I'm learning bagpipes. So, yeah.
And you how old were you?
I was 11, I think.
Okay.
12.
And did you join band in middle school? And I know you were in band in high school, and then you had your own bands. Let's talk.
Yeah, it was kind of a one-man show in middle school. I was kind of a weird dude. Don't tell anybody I said that, but I didn't really get into playing with other people, and I didn't really think about that was a thing either. I don't know why, but through middle school, and then once we got into high school, and I realized that some of my friends were musicians. My friend Seth Merkel was in Boy Scouts with me. He's a fellow Eagle Scout, now a doctor of like quantum physics in New Mexico or something. This kid, this is the smartest kid I've ever met in my life. He's the same kid that walked through my screen door like 4 times, I want to say, when we were kids. But it turns out he's a drummer, right? So Seth and I guess you'd call it a band. We used to make a lot of noise and try and play Hendrix covers at my house, much to my parents' annoyance. They couldn't watch TV. We were so loud. But that was the beginning of it. And then, in high school, I made more friends, and we said, okay, let's actually try and learn some songs. But in terms of, being in a high school band or, the marching band or any of that, I never did that. Not, for any particular reason. It just never happened for me. I can tell you, though, Dave DeAngelis ran the chorus program at the high school while we were there, and at the time, the Westerly Guild factory up the street had just closed, and they donated about, I want to say, 50 Guild guitars to the school. And so Westerly High School created the guitar program with these 50 guitars. And, it was a brand new program, and I just happened to be there. And I wound up, like, instead of going to study hall my junior and senior year, I would go to the guitar room and teach the guitar class. So that was a lot of fun. And shout out to Dave DeAngelis, because he was our shepherd in the our harbor in the storm in our high school years.
Yeah.
So
Westerly High School Music Hall of Fame.
yeah.
You are destined to be a future Westerly High School Hall of Famer as well.
I would be honored
because of your teaching work, especially. You were in some bands, some touring bands. Fungus Among Us, that was one of them. They were a really good band, actually, and you had, I mean, I think I saw you all over the place. And then you continue to play live music. I want to talk a little bit about your journey as a musician performing live and how you've taken that and your knowledge of guitar and kind of turned those two things into your philosophy and way of teaching music, with meeting kids where they're at as far as the music they like and listen to, but also teaching them things beyond how to play the instrument, how to market yourself and get yourself out there and gig as a musician, which is a remarkable thing. So how did you what was the path from musician to really finding your stride and desire to take what you know and pass that along?
Well, that's a complex question, but I will start by saying I shouldn't be here. I should not be the director of a music school. I'll tell you that. After college, I worked and staffed home healthcare facilities, so hospitals and assisted care facilities. And I came back to Westerly after that little adventure and walked into Fret's Guitar right down the street. And a good friend of mine, Zach Dustin, owns Fret's, and he said, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I have no idea." And he said, "Well, why don't you teach guitar?" And I hadn't even crossed my mind to do that. And that was 17 years ago. So, it started just with a couple of students, and I was going house to house and working out of a guitar case. I pretty quickly realized that I loved it. I loved seeing, the progression of people and telling people all of the lessons that I had learned the hard way and trying to, and try to make it better for them. I also had a lot of bad guitar teachers, so I had seen mistakes made. As a matter of fact, one of them I think is still doing time. We'll have to come back to that, but yeah. So when I took the plunge to make guitar teaching my full-time gig, I really tried to incorporate lessons I had learned in life into teaching the kids. And a lot of that comes from the Boy Scouts of America. So when I was a teenager, they had this program called White Stag, and it's a junior leader training program. I staffed it for a number of years, and obviously I was a participant, but the course is designed, with the vehicle of, camping and existing in the woods. It is designed to teach young people how to be a human being, to impart life skills that they can apply to whatever they're going to do for the rest of their life. And that idea I really latched onto, and I really love combining music education with those kinds of things. So case in point, I manage this band called Pop, which is an ensemble through the United Music School. Those kids just did a tour this summer, and other bands go on tour, teenage bands, and the parents do, not to say anything bad about parents, but they do all the work, right? They plan the tour, they talk to the bookings, and my whole philosophy on that is, you don't learn by somebody else doing it for you. So, my kids, they pick the songs, they run the rehearsals, they know how to set up the gear. When we went on tour, we had, not just the musicians, but we had, a tech person, we had a media person, we really try to to empower the kids to run their own show, and that's the idea. So, how's that?
That's
Good
great.
answer? All right,
That's
good.
perfect. So, when it comes to teaching, you started something called the Band Room, and now you're running the United Music School. How many kids are you teaching? This is a good opportunity to talk about what the United Music School is and what your philosophy there in particular is with your teachers and your staff and your students, and tell anybody who hasn't heard of the United Music School or might be hearing about it for the first time listening to this, what it's all about.
So, well, first of all, the Band Room, I talk about it affectionately because, I guess seeing things in your past, right? It's always rosy in your past. The truth is, the Band Room was a private lesson studio that I started with Ryan Piccolo, who himself is a very, talented music educator, and about 7 other people. And it was a space that we literally built. We found a storefront, commercial space, and we built some lesson rooms in it and insulated it as best we could. And that was home for a couple of years. We moved in there in 2016, and then we moved out when the United Theater opened, and we've been here ever since as part of the United Music School. But while we're on that track, I might as well talk about how that came to be. So before the pandemic, we had 150-ish kids and 10 faculty members. And that space that we had moved into in 2016, which we thought was going to be enough room forever, right? 4 lesson rooms was going to be plenty of space. Well, by 2019, we had pretty much grown out of room. And I knew Tony was working on the rehab of the United Theater. So I called Tony and I said, hey, man, can we possibly rent some space? And Tony said, well, I'm glad you called me because we were going to call you. And the next thing I know, Tony and Tony asked me to come to the Ocean House, and I sat down with Mr. Royce, and we started to hatch the plan for combining forces. So in the summer of 2021, we moved in to the music school, which is a state-of-the-art facility. Talk about going from rags to riches. We went from a space where all I had to do was yell to Ryan in the room next door what he wanted for lunch, and and now we're in these sound-isolated palaces of music rooms with a front desk and an amazing staff and incredible faculty, and we're in the basement of this magical place called the United Theater that has these amazing performance spaces and partnerships, and we are just so incredibly lucky to be a part of that, or at least that's how I feel. I don't know how anybody else feels. I'm pretty sure they feel lucky, but So my philosophy for the kids and the faculty at the school, it's always been about community for us, as well as being, music educators. We came to realize pretty quickly that, kids come to see us to learn how to play an instrument. Not everybody is an Isabella Spears that takes life so, has a goal in mind straight from the get-go and says, I'm going to do that, and puts on her country boots and and is phenomenal right out of the gate, So we have some kids that come in because music really is an artistic outlet for, what's going on with them as a person. And we leaned into that. So now some of our faculty are trained in mental health first aid so that we can, better help the kids that come, to see us and treat us like a trusted adult. And, now we know what to do in those situations, or a little bit more, I should say. So my philosophy is we're a safe space and we're a community, and on top of being a music school. So how's that?
It's perfect. Perfect answer. The last 2 questions I end these interviews with are always the same as well. Because this is a bit of a Westerly-centric podcast, What are your 3 favorite places here in Westerly?
Ooh, man. Okay. All right. Okay. Favorite place, and I'm not going to say the school or the theater.
You can say whatever you want. There's no rules here.
All right. Well, there's pressure right there, isn't it? Like, all right. Well, all right. So we're gonna say not the school, not the theater.
Okay, that's fair.
So number 1 is the Nick. All right. We teach music ed at the Nick 3 days a week, and it is an honor to be in that building. And I love it. I love it so much. And I love being a custodian of the history of that place and bringing in the next generation of performers into there and, passing on that legacy to the next generation is amazing. I'm so lucky to do that. Okay, so then the other ones are kind of weird. Let's see. Okay, I like the Babcock Smith House and that whole area right there. So you have multiple remnants of the Smith Granite Company right there. There's the old Smith Granite Company store, which is now Eyes on Negrelli, that building. And then the Hoxie dealership was until very recently, the Smith Granite Company store that was, torn down and rebuilt. But there's still some blocks from that building over there. Don't tell anybody I said that. And it's a pretty cool place. The other favorite spot, I'm going to say, man, what a rough question, Tony. Favorite spot in Westerly?
These are hard-hitting questions.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
This is tough.
Journalism. No, it's not journalism.
So, all right, you want to hear a cool spot that I just found? This is ridiculous. It's like asking what's your favorite movie, right? Like,
Yeah.
or your favorite song.
It changes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I like puzzles. Recently, I discovered a picture of the pontoon bridge that used to run across the Pawcatuck River from Margin Street to Mechanic Street. Okay, and I went in search of remnants of this place. How dorky am I? So I got down on, if you go down Margin Street, on the right-hand side, there's a sign that says it's a town-owned piece of property, and that's where the bridgehead was. And if you go across the river where the thread mill was, that's where the other end of it was. So I was talking about that on All About Westerly with Ben Barber and 321 Media, and it turned out that the Westerly Historical Society was working on an article about this exact same thing. So I got to geek out with a couple of people. Well, that's a new favorite spot.
Nice.
How's that?
And it's a spot that doesn't exist anymore, then.
Well, I mean, you can go to the woods and say there used to be a bridge here, but there's nothing to see.
Gotcha.
It's not. Yeah, it's very disappointing. That was a bad pick. You're right.
It's
Tony.
not. No,
I'm
it's
sorry.
not. It's our first imagination pick. Yeah. That's
Oh
good.
yeah.
Yeah. First
what
imagination
used to be
pick.
here. All right. Cool.
All right. So the last question, I end every one of these interviews with this question, and it's a heavy question. It's a 3-part question, a little bit. One that sets the stones on the path for future voices and conversations like these. Like any community, Westerly is an ever-evolving community of new businesses, creatives, and voices. What is next for you? What would you like to see happen in this community over the next few years, and how do you hope to be a part of it?
So I thought this question was coming, and I gave it some thought. And really, I'm a simple guy. I love what I'm doing already. So it's not that I would change anything that's happening right now. It's more to amplify it. So I would like to see more youth performance opportunities. I'd love to do a music series, outdoor music series at some point. And we're going to hopefully do that together. I think Westerly, since you and I were in high school, has changed so dramatically in such a positive, wonderful way that if we stay on that trajectory, I think we're going to be in a very good place in 5 years. this place is alive, and a lot of it has to do with the United and the United Music School and all the good work that's going on here. So I'm just happy to be a part of it.
All right. Tom Foley, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the United Theater Podcast Network. If you enjoyed this episode, we encourage you to subscribe to our show so you never miss an episode. And if you could take a moment to leave a review, we'd greatly appreciate it. Your feedback helps us create content that you love. So hit that subscribe button and leave us a review, and we'll see you on the next episode.